What's up and welcome to the Active Amputee podcast. Everything people with a limb difference need to live an active and exciting lifestyle. I'm Bjorn Eser, the founder of and shaker and maker behind the Active Amputee. And you're listening to episode number 23, and today I have the pleasure of talking with an above-knee amputee from Scotland, Hope Gordon. Today I have the pleasure of talking with Hope Gordon from Scotland. She's a young woman. She's a professional athlete, if I'm not mistaken. She's very, very active, and she has an amazing story to tell. Welcome, Hope. It's great to have you on the show.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Hope, where are you calling in from today? Where are you at the moment?
So I'm in Nottingham in England.
Okay. Oh, so you're not even in Scotland. Sorry.
No, definitely Scottish. But I've been based down in Nottingham for a couple of years now, training down here. So yeah.
Yeah, you're talking about training and coming down to Nottingham for training. I already mentioned you're a professional athlete. What kind of training are you engaged in the moment?
So I train full time with the British Para Canoe team. So it's a centralised programme. So we all train together in Nottingham. So I relocated from Scotland down here a couple of years ago and just been training since.
Yeah, it seems to be you really feel at home in and on the water. I think we met I can't even recall, I think it was 2017 or 18 around a paraclimbing event. So not canoeing. But then when we talked, you said you're actually coming out of more or less professional swimming. So it seems you're quite active. Tell us a bit more about your sports career, so to say.
Yes, I've been sporting my whole life, and then I guess when I kind of developed a disability when I was 12, a lot of those sports were kind of taken away from me, which I used to do as a able-bodied child, if you like. And then the one thing that I could keep doing that I was doing before was swimming. So I just kept swimming just because I could, and it was the only sport I really felt kind of free in doing, and my leg didn't really hold me back. And then I kind of got into para swimming, and I swam in the Scottish team for probably about nearly 10 years. And then we met through climbing. So I had an amputation in 2016, and then after that I was based in Edinburgh, and where I was living was only about a 15-minute drive from Ratho, the climbing centre. So that was a sport that I just kind of got into, and I just loved. I just went along like once a week, just totally for fun. And yeah, that's how we met.
You already mentioned that, yeah, you were very sporty as a teenager, as a child. And then when you were 11 or 12 or so, something in your life, took an unexpected turn, so to say. Can you tell us a bit more about how you actually lost your leg? You're an above-knee amputee, and as I said, you're very active, and you have been since 2016, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah, but how did it actually came to the amputation? I know you have a story which is not one of the common how I lost my leg stories, so to speak.
Yes, it's quite unique. So yeah, growing up, I was absolutely fine. Grew up in the Highlands of Scotland, and when I was 12, I just went to school one day, as you do when you're 12, totally fine. The only thing that was ever kind of different was since I was 4, I would have pains in my left knee, and the doctors always just put it down to growing pains. And it was one of those things that it would kind of just come, and I would have a sore leg for a bit, and then it would ease off, and I would just kind of crack on. I was never really worried about it. It kind of just came and went. And then this one day when I was 12, I was just at school, and my leg just basically just stopped working. And even then I didn't really think it was going to be a big thing, because I was kind of used to having a sore leg kind of on and off, but I just thought it was just bit worse than normal. My friends were I would have like an arm around two of my friends, and they kind of helped me get around in school that day. And then I went swimming after school, and I just couldn't kick my leg in the water. It was just so like really, really painful. I couldn't really walk on it. I was kind of hobbled out to the car, and my mum picked me up, and she sort of took one look at me and was a bit like, what on earth have you done? Probably expecting me to say that I'd fallen off a cliff or something like that. And I was like, I don't know, like I've not done anything. And it was one of those things that we just thought I'd go to sleep that night and wake up the next morning absolutely fine again. And yeah, I guess I just haven't walked naturally since then. Really, it just kind of got worse and worse and worse. And eventually I was getting around on crutches. About probably nearly a year later, I finally got diagnosed after a year of kind of doctors sort of scratching their heads, and they didn't really know what was going on, and eventually got diagnosed with complex regional pain syndrome, which is a chronic neurological pain condition. And there's still not too much known about the condition. It's starting to get a little bit more understood, but it affects everybody differently, and there are treatments available, but there's no cure for it, unfortunately. So it was a case of spending a lot of time in hospital getting different treatments and hoping that one would help. Unfortunately, nothing did really help. And after spending so much time in hospital, getting all the treatments under the sun, sort of in my head, I was a bit like, I think I'd be better off than amputation. By this point, I was maybe 14. So it's obviously quite young to be thinking that. And then as well, I knew that amputation was against the guidelines for the condition, purely because it's neurological, and essentially the pain was coming from my brain down my nervous system to my leg rather than from my leg up to my brain. So I knew that amputation wasn't going to be just a case of just saying to the doctor, look, I want my leg amputated, and the next day they whip you off to theatre and take it off. I knew it wasn't going to be that simple, but equally I didn't think it'd be quite as the challenge as it ended up being. And so I was 16. I kind of kept it to myself for quite a while, and then when I was 16, that was when I first spoke to my mum and dad about it, and then asked the doctors, and it didn't kind of go down that well to start with. And then eventually I was 21 by the time I actually got the amputation, and I ended up having to find my own surgeon. And then it was a case of the NHS said that, like, we're not going to fund this, so then I had to raise the money to get it done privately. So they eventually got it done in the 2nd of August 2016, and it was more relief than anything else. It was finally into it. It was quite a journey just to get there. Yeah,
but as you said, I mean, the condition started when you were 12 or something around that age, and when you finally, I mean, had to face the diagnosis that you said it's not something temporarily, and even if it's a long temporarily affecting you, but something that probably won't get better. How did you deal with this kind of diagnosis that you say, okay, for the rest of my life, I might actually be struck by, I don't know, a painful leg, and not just every once in a while on and off painful, but really something that affects the quality of life day in and day out?
Yeah, I think it obviously was difficult. I remember when I first got diagnosed, I was so happy. And it sounds a bit silly because it's obviously not a nice condition to be diagnosed with. But I just remember feeling really happy because finally somebody knew what was wrong with me, because it was quite a journey just to even get to that point, because I knew I had this leg that was so painful and nobody knew what was wrong with it. And it was a bit, I had kids at school would be like, oh, you're just faking it. And even some nurses said to me, like, this is all in your brain. And it's hard because chronic pain is invisible. It's not, you can't see pain. And especially because nothing actually physically happened to me to cause it, I think a lot of people kind of didn't really appreciate it. So that was quite difficult. And obviously I've kind of been at school and things like that. I was really lucky that my friends were amazing. But there's always those kind of couple of people, like just kind of girls at school that are a bit like, oh, like you're just faking it, you're looking for attention, all that sort of stuff. So I guess that is quite hard. And then as well, like I think it was a case of just taking each day as it comes. Like I don't really remember being like, oh, I'm going to be like you're old with this condition. I think it was just a case of taking each day as it comes, and it was quite difficult to look ahead, I guess. And I guess when I got a bit older, the only kind of future I could see was as an amputee, because I was like, I'm not going to get anywhere with this leg, like having it. Like the only way that I can see a positive outcome is to have an amputation.
Yeah. But I mean, that's quite a brave vision for someone that young. I mean, I know many older amputees who had longer struggle with infections or with, I don't know, implants that didn't work, or with diabetes or something. But they started their life, they probably had a family, they have a job, and they then felt settled to kind of slowly come to terms with, making a decision, probably as you did, against the advice of medical personnel, of the health system, but doing that more or less independently as a 14, 15, 16-year-old one. And then actually taking on also the financial challenge of it. You mentioned the NHS, which for our non-British listeners is a National Health Service in the UK, which is taxpayer funded. And so it's quite good as it's free for the end user, so to say. But if they say no, you need to be creative. And you actually were quite creative. As you said, you had to find your own surgeon and you had to come up with the money. How did you do that?
Yeah, obviously we're so lucky in the UK to have the NHS. They do such an amazing job. But yeah, I guess me personally, I think a lot of the reason the NHS wouldn't fund it is because I guess the unknown, because it is a neurological condition, and there was a chance that I could have the amputation and still be left with the same pain. So then it becomes an ethical thing. So yeah, I'm not dissing the NHS at all. I think they're absolutely amazing. But equally, when they said no, as a family, we're a bit like, it's a lot of money. And honestly, I couldn't see how I was going to get through however long it was going to take for us to save as a family in order to get it. Like, I was like, I can't live that much longer with the leg that I had and the quality of life that I had. So then felt like the only other option really was to crowdfund, which is obviously quite a bizarre thing to do. I feel like it's still, like, even though it's nearly 5 years down the line now, it still feels like a bizarre thing that I did. And as well, it's not like, some of my close friends and family knew that I did want my leg amputated, but it wasn't something that I went around shouting from the rooftops to, classmates and even people that I used to swim with. They didn't really know about it. So yeah, I guess it's a bit of a weird thing, but I'm just so lucky that I managed to raise the money and then eventually got the operation. So I'm just so thankful to everybody that helped me and supported me and just shared it and donated in any way possible. So yeah, I was very, very lucky.
Very brave, great. And as I said, probably quite unusual. I think other young people your age probably crowdfund for the Boys or Girl Scouts or some gap year trip or something. And crowdfunding for an amputation is special, I think. Hope that is an amazing story. It's really it's amazing to hear. Okay, then you had the money together, you found a surgeon, you probably had family support and friend support who say, yeah, we're with you. And then comes the day of the amputation and the day after the amputation. Did you get the change in your life you actually wanted? And if yes, how long did it take from saying goodbye to the old painful leg to actually accepting the new Hope Gordon, so to speak?
I still remember the day of the amputation so clearly, and I just remember feeling so relieved. And it was such a battle just to get to that day, because so the operation was actually scheduled. Well, it got cancelled 7 times in the lead up to it happening. So, like, I'm not gonna lie, that was probably the most difficult thing of the whole lot, was because psychologically you get geared up for this happening on this day, and then the day before it's supposed to happen, you get told it's not happening. And then that kept on happening again and again and again. So when I was finally in the hospital, I just kept on saying, I'm like, is it definitely happening? Is it definitely happening? And they were like, yeah, it's happening. And even my mum and dad were like, are you sure? I think everybody just got so fed up of us like asking, but it was because it was such a journey just to get there. So yeah, I just remember when I went down to theatre, I was just so relieved that I was like, this thing is actually going today. And yeah, I remember waking up, and it sounds so small and so insignificant, but for me, like, I couldn't even touch my own leg. When I was like in bed, I couldn't have any of the covers on it. I had it up on like loads of pillows, and my foot was kind of just hanging off the end in this really weird angle. So just to wake up and having like a blanket over my whole body, it sounds so pathetic, but I was this happened in nearly 10 years. And yeah, just like really to start with, it was really, really small things. Just like, and the first time I stood up, my mum and dad were there, and they were like, that is the first time we've seen you stand straight in nearly 10 years. And just generally like getting around, my leg didn't bend, so it was out straight the whole time. And the world just isn't designed to be sat down in a wheelchair with a leg out in front of you. So even just going through a door and just really basic things just made such a big difference for me.
That resonates with me. I mean, I had a completely different story, but I had an endoprothesis for, 15 or even longer years. And then when I had an infection, the doctors actually said, well, we take it out, we put a new one in, but you're going to lose your knee joint. It's going to be stiff. And I also was, no, I'm not having that. If I picture my life 5-10 years down the line, it doesn't involve a stiff knee, at least not for a longer period of time. So it was also kind of a chosen amputation against the doctor's advice, but obviously from a different perspective. But also the thing where you said the world isn't made for people with a stiff leg, from getting into a car to getting into the movie, into a seat in the rows, to getting to the toilet, to anything. And I thought, no, my life doesn't involve a stiff leg.
Yeah. No, and it's so true. Like, airplanes were just an absolute nightmare. Just really general things are just really difficult. Like, yeah, the world just really isn't designed for not having a leg that bent.
So true. Yeah, but then that was middle of 2016, if I'm not mistaken, when you had the amputation. What did the weeks and the months afterwards look like for you?
Yeah, so I had the amputation. It was actually in Blackpool, where I had it. I was living in Stirling at the time, but home is the north of Scotland. So I got out of hospital. I think it was actually one of my shortest ever hospital stays, even though it was the biggest operation. I was really lucky that I recovered well and pretty fast. And then went home, and a few weeks later I started the kind of process of rehab. The biggest thing for me was my glutes. So my left glute basically didn't do anything for nearly 10 years. So it was literally starting from scratch. So that took a long time, and it's still something that I'm working on now. But yeah, that was kind of literally starting from zero, really. But I think maybe two or 3 weeks post-op, I was up on a kind of practice prosthetic, and that was the first time I'd kind of walked, if you like. And I actually started university a month later. So I went to college, which then meant I could go straight into third year at university. So I kind of signed up for this course, and I knew I was having this operation I was hoping I was having this operation at some point, and I've had no idea what the outcome was going to be, how fast I was going to recover or anything like that. So I kind of just rocked up to my first day of university. I think it was about 4 weeks post-op. So it was kind of, it was quite a lot, because I moved from Stirling to Edinburgh as well. So I kind of moved cities, started uni, was trying to learn how to walk again, going through all the rehab process. But I just loved it. Like, I was able to do so much more. And I think you just sort of got to take it head on, really, and just crack on. But I think one of the biggest things that I really enjoyed at the time was before the amputation, I spent so long in hospital getting endless physio, and you try so hard, but I just didn't get anywhere. Whereas after my amputation, I would do the physio and I would see progress.
Yeah.
And it was just so nice to be able to see progress from work rather than just kind of completely just always not getting anywhere.
Being put back in the driver's seat of your own life, where you say, well, okay, now I could make that decision, and now I'm getting rid of that leg which held me back and rid of the pain, and now I'm in charge of my life again. It's up to me to, as you said, if I put in the work, I'm gonna see progress. And if there are the days when I need a bit of kicking in the behind to get active, I probably ask my friends or take a day or two on the couch. And I think that's amazing when you suddenly say, well, I'm in charge again, and it's not up to some pain syndrome or the NHS or others to make decisions for me or to put in the work, but don't actually see progress. That's great. You're an athlete. You've always been very sporty. What role did sports play in your recovery, in your physical recovery, as well as, accepting the amputation, being mentally in a new headspace, so to speak?
Like massively. And I think not just after amputation, but beforehand as well. I think at the time I just sort of swam, and I knew that it helped me a lot, but I don't think it was till afterwards, until I was kind of in a better space, if you like, that I actually realised I'm like, swimming really, really did help me a lot. But I think as well is because I was involved in parasport, I knew so many amputees, and I knew, well, not just amputees, but all sorts of different people with different disabilities. So I knew that I kind of knew my path, which I think is actually really lucky, because so many people become an amputee and they're just a bit like, wow, like what on earth do I do now? Whereas I feel like I was in a really fortunate position that I kind of knew what I wanted to do. So yeah, I think sport was massive for me, both beforehand, afterwards, from a physical point of view and a psychological point of view as well. Yeah, like massively.
I mean, for many people who are engaged in competitive sports, the last 12, 15 months have been a bit of a bummer, to say the least. How has it been for you? I mean, you're a world-class athlete in terms of being part of the British canoeing team, having participated in European and World Championships, probably having the Paralympics on your mind. What did the last couple of months do to you, and how are things hopefully slowly changing?
Yeah, I think my first proper season within Paracanoe was 2018, 2019. So in 2019, I had this really great year, and it was the first time I was really traveling with the team and going on training camps and getting to compete internationally with the team. So yeah, it was all going really well, and then got back into training after the 2019 season. So that we would have started our 2020 season in the September time, and we were training for Paralympic selection, which was supposed to be April 2020. But then, of course, COVID hit in March, and yeah, everything just totally shut down. Our training centre got shut down. I basically packed my car with as much training equipment as I could and headed back home to the north of Scotland. If we're going to be in lockdown, I wanted to be in lockdown in the hills in the middle of nowhere rather than a top floor flat in Nottingham. So yeah, and I was off the water for 14 weeks, which for somebody that was still fairly new to the sport is, well, for anybody that's a long time. And yeah, when I did eventually get back on the water, it was pretty much like starting from scratch again. But since maybe June 2020, so about a year ago, we've been really lucky that we've had DCMS, so like we're allowed to train basically through, like, there's lots of rules and regulations that we've followed, but because we train it in like an elite centre, where we've been really lucky that we've been allowed access through the second and third lockdowns. Yeah, obviously it's not what it used to be, but it's as close to the normal, if you like, as we're probably going to get for the foreseeable. So yeah, I haven't raced internationally since 2019. Just recently, we've started to be able to race nationally again, which is where I train every day. So I've not paddled anywhere different since 2019. The same water. But yeah, so hopefully now things are kind of starting to look up, and we'll get some more competitions in.
Yeah, and what are some of your goals for this in the coming year?
So we had our selection for the Paralympics in April, which was our first race back. So yeah, no pressure. And yeah, for me it was a bit of a bittersweet day. I did kind of massive PBs, but for our sport to go to the games is actually really, really difficult. Well, for any sport, it's difficult to go, obviously, but for us, it's particularly difficult because there's only one spot. So I came second. So even though I kind of did massive PBs and stuff, it was kind of my teammate did a world record on the day of selection. So I've got the reserve slot, but we've still got World Championships in September. So I'm hoping to, and that's 2 per nation. So rather than just the one. So hopefully in September I'll get to race out at World Championships.
Yeah, where are they this year?
They're in Denmark, in Copenhagen.
Okay, well, all the best there.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hope, if other people with limb difference, amputees or people with other limitations, if they hear this episode and think about getting into water sports, getting into canoeing, any tips, any ideas on what they should do if they want to give it a try?
I think just doing it. Like for me, the water is like freedom. It's whether I was in it with swimming or now when I'm on it with canoeing. I just love the fact that I don't need crutches, I don't need a prosthetic, I don't need a wheelchair. It's just sort of you and the water or you and a boat. So yeah, that's the thing that I absolutely love about it the most. And I would just say just give it a go. You get all sorts of different types of boats. So we do sprint, so we've got really long skinny boats, which are not the most stable. But if somebody wants to just go out and just be on the water, you can get much more kind of more balanced, friendly boats. So yeah, I just say just do it. And then as well, if you'd obviously want to get into the competitive side of it, then just get in touch with your kind of local club or the national governing body, wherever that is.
Yeah, as someone who's a bit into kayaking myself, not at your level, much more senior citizen paddling, so to say. Did you actually adapt your boat in any way? Or do you just use it the way you find it in the shop, so to say?
It is adapted a little bit. So there's 3 different types of para boats. So they kind of have the widest one that you start off in, and then they kind of get a bit skinnier and a bit skinnier. I use the skinniest para boat that's available. And I do have a slight adaptation so I don't wear a prosthetic or anything in the boat. I basically just have a Velcro strap to keep my leg down, and a bit of foam, a bit of strap, a bit of gaffer tape, and off you go, really.
Sounds familiar. Not using the socket, as it very often kind of limits, especially in the front. I think the upper rim of the socket is always a bummer if you sit down and want to do some sports. And similar here, as you said, a bit of foam padding, a bit of old sponges from around the house, and loads of gaffer tape. Yeah.
I was just joking with my coach today. I was like, if you've got a problem, just get a bit of foam. That's kind of the answer to most things.
Yeah. I think it actually is. Hope, if you had to describe yourself to people who don't know you with 3 adjectives, what are 3 adjectives you would pick?
Oh, that's a tricky one. I would say I'm resilient, happy, and just hope.
I think that's a good one. I'm just Hope. Hope, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking with you. It's an amazing story. As I said, I heard it the first time just briefly after we met in Edinburgh. And once I started the podcast last year, I thought one day I need to call you and see if you want to be on the show. So thank you very much for taking the time and coming on the show. It's been a real pleasure having you, and all the best for you personally, as well as for your sporting career, and hoping that COVID very soon is history, or at least a way that it's more manageable. Yeah, all the best for the World Championship in Denmark in September. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of the new episodes. And I would really appreciate it if you leave me a rating on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. If you want to learn more about the Active Amputee, make sure to head over to www.theactiveamputee.org, where you find hundreds of articles from amputees for amputees. Articles filled with inspiration, information, and encouragement to be active and live a rewarding life. I see you all again for the next episode. Until then, all the best. This is Bjorn from The Active Amputee.